This
Fine.
conference will now be recorded.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So in today meetup, so we'll discuss about the Kubernetes introduction. So we'll give brief introduction about the Kubernetes and its components. Okay. So we are here from Micronet Group. Okay. It is founded around in 1999. So it's a founded by some 18 plus experienced people. Okay. This is one of the best company in the US, and we provide the IT solution. Okay, so that's what about the Micronet. And now who am I? So my name is Pawan Kamboj. So I have around 12 of experience in the Linux administrations and DevOps side. So you can reach me out on GitHub and LinkedIn as well. So now let's come into the Kubernetes. So what is the Kubernetes? That's the first. So we'll cover about the Kubernetes, its architecture and its components. Okay. So Kubernetes, as of now today, one of the most powerful open source systems available in the market. So it is used to managing the containerized workload in a clustered environment. So that means it is one of the system available in the market who people use it to manage their container workload in a clustered environment. So there are it's built from the lesson learned at the Google. Okay, so Google is already doing using the Kubernetes for around last 10 years, and they call that system Borg. And later on in 2014, they open sourced the same with the name of Kubernetes. So now it is very active project on the GitHub, and a lot of people are using it. In the one of the biggest name in the industry like the Red Hat, Google, Oracle, Microsoft, all they are contributing in the development of the system. Okay, so it can do a lot of things. Okay, so there are few more cover I will here like the self healing means whenever your application go down, so it automatically start. Okay, so there is no manual intervention required. It do these things automatically. Okay, so that is a self healing means there is no changes required from the user end like in your application go down for some any reason, right? Your node go down or out of memory or any other reason. So Kubernetes automatically take care of it. It start the same application again at some other node or on the same node if it is available. Then auto scale workload. It will scale the workload according to the requirement. You can put the scaling policy, right? For example, you want that I want in scaling like the minimal number of two running as at a time, and you want to scale at peak the maximum limit of five. So Kubernetes take care of that, and it will make sure that whenever the applications have that specific metrics available for the load, it will scale the application according to how you define in your Kubernetes. And then the blue-green deployments. So that's a popular term nowadays in people are using in DevOps, the blue-green deployment. So means like you have a one version of application is running on Kubernetes and you want to roll out the another one. Okay, so without any downtime. So that is the Kubernetes provide that functionality. So there is no downtime. Application automatically switch to the new version, let's say V2 automatically, then Kubernetes 2 in the backend, all these things automatically without any manual intervention. And you can also schedule the jobs like the cron jobs and one-time jobs. Okay, that you can also run, and you can run the stateless application as well as stateful application like the database kind of things like the Mongo, Elasticsearch, MySQL. You can run those stateful application as well, and stateless application like the Nginx, Apache, all those. Okay, and then it's provide a native method of service discovery. Okay, so it's inbuilt method of the service discovery available in the Kubernetes. So there is no need to deploy anything else. So that is the inbuilt functionality available. So all the services that you deploy in Kubernetes can interact with each other with their name. So there is no any other things you need to do. So then importantly, it uses the same API across the bare metal or even though you are running on cloud. Okay, that is the industry-wide standard. So if you have one application that's running on Kubernetes, you can run that application anywhere in the world if you have the Kubernetes available there. So same API, same functionality. Okay, so that is the one standard followed by the industry. Okay, the now there are few couple of concepts in the Kubernetes, and those are the ports is there and another is a service. So I will discuss briefly short about that. Then we'll cover later on this because these require to understand the next Kubernetes architecture. So port. So port is one of the smallest units of Kubernetes. Right. So as I told you earlier, so Kubernetes mainly to run the container workload. Okay. So pod are the one who run the container. Okay. So you can run the container inside the pod. You can run one or more containers inside the pod. That depend on the requirement, and they share the same volume or network. All the containers within the pod. That is the pod. So what the workloads you are going to run in the container in the Kubernetes, that is a pod. Inside the pod, you run the container. And then the another thing is a service. Now you run the workload using pod. Now you want to access that workload. So service come into picture. Okay. So those expose the workload. You run a one like a Nginx pod in your Kubernetes environment. So now you want to access it, right? So service provide that functionality. It's a kind of a virtual load balancer. We'll discuss more about that. So just understand that it's just exposing that service outside your Kubernetes cluster, even though within the Kubernetes cluster. So Ramesh, you're saying something?
Yes, Pawan. Hi guys. I have shared one Google form to get the recording session after completion of this session. And also we are maintaining one WhatsApp group for sharing knowledge. If anyone interested, please utilize the WhatsApp group as well. That's it, Pawan. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next part is the architecture. Okay. In Kubernetes, there are two main components. That is the control plane, as you can see in the picture, right? And the another is the node component. So node is where you are going to run your workload. Okay, so control plane is your components who manage your entire Kubernetes cluster. That is a control plane. Okay, so there are different part of that services that run in the control plane. We'll discuss that. And node is also few components that we need to run. Okay, so two basic components in Kubernetes, that is the control plane and node. The control plane to control your entire Kubernetes cluster. Node is where you are going to run your workload. Okay, so we'll discuss about this. So you can see etcd, controller, scheduler, all these now. So these are the control plane components. Your Kube API server is etcd, Kube controller manager, Kube scheduler. So these are the four main control plane components. So first one is Kube API server. So that is the main front end available in the Kubernetes. So everybody who wants to interact with the Kubernetes, okay, that is the only way. Your API. That service expose a REST API. So all people interact with that. Okay. So there is no any other way. Okay. And it handle all the authentication and authorization. And there are few other like the request validation, mutations, and admission control as well. So those are the extra functionality, right? It provides authentication and authorization as well. So you can uh, uh, integrate with this REST API with your existing authentication or authorization service like the Active Directory or LDAP or even the OpenIDC providers. Okay. Okay. So then etcd. So that is the distributed key value store. Okay. So Kubernetes keep all its data in etcd. It's a kind of a data store and store all the Kubernetes objects here. So make sure that when you are running the Kubernetes, make sure etcd always backup. If you have the backup of the etcd, you can easily restore your Kubernetes cluster, because it is the things where Kubernetes store everything. If etcd is down, means your Kubernetes is down. And it's developed by CoreOS and mainly using for shared configuration and service discovery as well. So in Kubernetes, it's only used for configuration, store the configuration, and it also provides the functionality of service discovery as well. So then the Kube Controller Manager. So that is the main, you can say, the director in the Kubernetes. Okay, that control all the components in the Kubernetes related to your application, right? For example, you run a workload, right? You run a pod in a Kubernetes, and you said that I want to run that pod. So controller take care of that. It makes sure whatever you want to run, it run that. Okay, and it has a lot of other component as well. Okay, so it run a single binary, but it has other controller as well, like the node controller and replication controller, admission controller, service account controller. Those are other component as well. So, but all those are available in a single binary, and this controller will make sure that it always the desired state. It will always try to set the desired state. Whatever the desired state you want to run, it will make sure that it will match. It will try to do match that condition. Then there is scheduler, Kube scheduler, as its name say. So it schedules your workload on the Kubernetes node. That is the scheduler. Okay. So that is the main component where it schedules the workload based on the node condition, right? Like the CPU, memory, disk. If you have enough memory, a CPU available, then it schedules the node. If you have not free CPU memory available in the disk on the node, then it will not schedule the workload there. So that's the scheduler. So there are few algorithms. It follows a few algorithms, and based on that, it schedules your workload on the node. And you can change those algorithms. By default, is the best fit. So it will make sure that any node who have the much free memory available, it schedule the load there. Okay. Then there is those are the control plane component. Then there is a node component. So we have three main node components: kubelet, kubeproxy, and the container runtime. So kubelet is the main node agent. Okay. So that it run your container, and it will make sure that it always runs. So I told you that node run your workload, and kubelet is who take care of that workload. Okay. So API send it get all the information about the port that I want to run that port. Okay, like you want to run a Nginx or any other Tomcat port. So it gets that information from the API server, and then it runs that port container according whatever the definition is available. It runs those ports. Okay, and it also interacts with the etcd and update the detail about your node, because it's running on a node. So it's timely send the information about the node as well, like the node is healthy or not. It take care of about all those functionality. Kube proxy, as you know, it's a kind of a proxy available in the Kubernetes. So it exposes your workload to outside or within the Kubernetes cluster. It's a kind of a network proxy, and it also load balance your workload as well. So using the TCP and UDP packet. Okay. So it apply the rules on each and every node. Those rules are depends on your workload, whatever the workload you're running. Okay. So that is when, as I told you earlier, there is a service right in Kubernetes which expose your workload outside. So service interact with the Kubernetes. So when you create any service, the kube proxy just put the rules according to that service, so that your workload, so your request serve according to the rules. So that is the task of the kube proxy. Then the container runtime. So it is a main like Kubernetes used to run your container workload, right? So you need a runtime to run those workloads, right? So Docker is the most popular runtime that people use. Okay, then there is the CRIO, RKT, Kata container as well, Witlet as well also there, container is also there. Okay, so whatever the your service or application that run the container workload, this is the container runtime. So Kubernetes is compatible on these 4 5 runtime. Okay, so you can choose any one of those and install your node to run your workload. Then we've covered about the Kubernetes networking. Okay, so there are two kind of networking available in the Kubernetes. One is the pod network, another is the service network. So pod network, that is a cluster-wide network that used for pod-to-pod communication. Okay, so one pod, how to interact with another pod. It provides IP address to each and every pod. Okay, so those can interact and it's available locally within the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so pod network is not reachable outside. So that is how that pod network works. Then service network, like we talk about the service is a kind of a virtual load balancer. So each, when you create a service, it will get a IP address. Okay, so that IP address is reachable within the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so if you hit that IP on any other port, within from any other port, so request will go to that the backend, whatever the backend available. And we discussed about already the kube proxy. The kube proxy apply the rules and also do the service discovery as well. So there are two kind of a network when you are going to set up a Kubernetes cluster. So you need to take care of all these two, pod network and service network as well. So, but these are two available within the Kubernetes cluster. So those are nothing to do with the outside cluster. Within the Kubernetes cluster, you can ping those IPs and you can call those services. So those are the Kubernetes architecture that we discussed about the control plane and node plane, node component. Okay. So then there are few couple of around 4 to 5 main core concepts that is available in the Kubernetes. Those are the just building block and foundation of running your Kubernetes workload. And these are the namespaces, pod, label selector, and your services as well. So these are the main core concepts. We'll see one by one. And also in the end of these core concepts and workload, I will show you the demo how you run your workload in Kubernetes. Okay, using this namespace, port, and there are a few other concepts as well. So namespace is just a logical separation of your uh, cluster, right? So it's kind of like you're working in an organization. In that organization, you have a sales department, you have a purchase department, marketing, finance. Like you divide a organization in those entities. So similarly, in Kubernetes, you can divide your Kubernetes cluster in different namespace. You create a namespace and you can set the quota that in that namespace, this is the limit of that namespace. Like for example, you create a namespace and you set that on the limit of this namespace is whatever the resources it can consume, like the 10 GB memory and 10 CPU. That is the limit, right? So when you run any workload within that namespace, so it Kubernetes makes sure that it will not cross that limit. Okay, that is the purpose of the namespace. So you can differentiate different applications. So you can control your applications based on their behavior. Like you can run the databases in another namespace and then stateless application in another namespace, or you can put cache in different namespace. So that all depend on your requirement. So logically, you can distribute your workload within the namespace. Then we already discussed about the port. Okay, again I'm repeating those. That's one of the smallest units. So whatever you are going to run as a workload, that is run as a pod. Okay, so pod has a it has a IP, and using that IP, you can reach out to that, and it can run one or more container. Okay, you can run one container or more than one container as well. So all those containers share the same IP. Whatever the IP Kubernetes assigned to port, same IP is shared by other container in that, because they share the same network namespace and volume namespace. So that's why they share the same IP address. Then label is just key value pair. Okay, that used to just identify, right? So it has assigned to each and every Kubernetes component. You can assign each and every, like we discussed about port, services, namespace. You can assign label to all those components, so that you can just fetch out the detail of other component using the label as well. Which is just a key value pair, and those are strict syntax available, so you need to follow those. Okay, and then selector. So filter, you want to, there is a label, right? So label is just a key value pair. Now you want to filter out some objects using those key value pairs. So that is called the selector. Okay. So selector we will see when we, I will show you when I will deploy the Kubernetes some workload there. Then I will show the selector functionality, how it selects your workload. Okay. So based on that, I will show you that, then you will more understand about that. Then services, again, those are just a physical, it's a virtual load balancer, and it's used to expose your workload, and it will make sure that your workload is available and virtually distributed among the pods. Okay. And you can also, it is available within the Kubernetes cluster and outside as well. And I told you earlier that it exposes a service IP as well, so which is available within the Kubernetes cluster. So that is the services. So it how target your workload? It's target using the selector. Okay. So whatever the selector you put in services, it match those key value pair label, and whatever the label it match in any pod, it will send the request to those. Then there are four major service type in Kubernetes. Right, the default is the cluster IP, means when you create this kind of service, it is available within the Kubernetes cluster. Okay. Then node port. So node port means you have a running group of node in your Kubernetes cluster, right? So in each and every node, it exposes a port. So that using that port, you can reach out to your workload. So that is a node port. Then load balancer type of services. So mostly it is useful when you run your Kubernetes on your AWS or any cloud provider. So when you set a service type equal to load balancer, so what happens? Kubernetes in the backend, it automatically creates the cloud load balancer. And that load balancer depend on your cloud environment. Like if you are running AWS and you are running Kubernetes cluster on AWS, so what happens in the backend? If your service type is load balancers, in the backend, it create a AWS ELB, Elastic Load Balancer, your classic load balancer. It also can create a network load balancer as well. So that is the service type. That's very useful when you run the workload on a cloud provider. So external name is kind of a CNAME record in your DNS. Right. For example, you have some services are running outside your Kubernetes cluster, and you want to access those services within the Kubernetes cluster using the Kubernetes service name. Okay. So that's where you can create a external name services using just to create CNAME record in the Kubernetes DNS. So that is the external name service. So now that comes the workload. So whatever, like you're in workload, you run the pod, right? We run the pod in Kubernetes, and inside the pod we have containers. So who manages that workload? Who run those workloads? So these are the 5-6 components: replica set, deployment, daemon set, stateful set, cron job, and job. So always use these uh, objects to run your code within the Kubernetes cluster. So those are different functionality. So we'll go through of each. Okay. So replica set. So this is the primary method of managing code replica. Okay. So it will take care that like you want to run 5 code and you use the replica set. So replica set make sure that the 5 number of code are always up and running. So it will take care by the replica set. It also do the scheduling, scaling, and deletion as well, right? Like if you want to scale your workload, so replica set make sure that you run the scaling command, and replica set make sure that it will scale those pods according to your requirement. So that is the main component, that is who run the code. Okay. So replica set. So it will always ensure that the desired state of the code is met. Okay. So whatever the conditions there, like you have a running load of nodes, suddenly your one node is goes down due to any failure. Okay. So replica set automatically schedule the code on the another node so that it match the replica. Then the deployment. Okay. So deployment manage replica set, which then manage code. So deployment is the most popular way to run your Kubernetes workload. Okay. So people do not deployment run the replica set, and then replica set run the code. Okay. So whenever you want to run any workload on Kubernetes, always follow the deployment. This is the one of the most popular way to run your workload on Kubernetes. Okay. So it is provides a rollback functionality and as well as rollout functionality, right? For example, you're running one version of your application v1 and you want to update it to v2. So deployment make sure that it do those kind of action update automatically. That is the rollout functionality. Even though you can do the rollback as well using one single command. So there is no downtime. It will make sure that whatever the things you put in the deployment definition, it met that condition. So all these things in the backend handled by the kube controller. I told you earlier that controller. It makes sure that it manage those things and run the deployment and your replica set. So deployment run the replica set and replica set run the code. So I will show you when we'll show the demo after these 3-4 slides. Okay. Then the another type of workload is daemon set. So daemon set is used when you want to run some workload on each and every node in your Kubernetes cluster, or some specific set of nodes. So then use the daemon set. Okay. For example, it's you want to run some health check services on your node, or you want to run some log services, right? Like you want to fetch the logs of your application. So you want to run an agent like the Fluentd or Filebeat. Okay. So daemon set is useful for those kind of workload. Or another thing is, for example, you want to monitor your node. For monitoring your node, you need to run some kind of services, right? Then, like the node exporter is available in the market. So people run those to monitor your node. So all those kind of workload run as a daemon set. Okay, so daemon set do one thing, it schedule that code on each and every node. Okay, and you can control this as well, where you want to run those codes. Like for example, you have 5 node are where you want to run your database workload, and 5 node are those where you want to run your cache services workload. So you can control those behavior in your daemon set definition. By default, it runs on each and every node. Stateful set. So as the name stateful, so people use this object to run the workload which you need a stateful, which when you want to run any stateful kind of application, so people use this stateful kind of workload. So what they do, it include it assign the pod a unique name. Okay, so when you delete the pod, it again use the same name. Okay, so that is the main behavior of the stateful set, and it also follow the order, right? For example, you run a stateful like a Mongo, MySQL, Redis, and all these stateful applications like the Elasticsearch, RabbitMQ, or any stateful application. So always run the stateful sets for those applications. So it includes the pod identity like the host name, network, and storage. So those will be persisted if you restart the pod, if you delete the pod, it will always remain the same. So that is what the stateful says. Because all these stateful application like your Elasticsearch or MySQL or Mongo, so your host name should be remain the same. Okay, so otherwise if you start code like the daemon set and the deployment, so code name always change. So I will show you in stateful set as well. So we'll see the name and all those scenarios. So let's do some demo here. So, about the what we discussed still here about the workload and the workload we run there on the Kubernetes. Okay. So first I will go through the deployment, how the deployment work in Kubernetes. I will simply deploy a Nginx image and will show you how that works in Kubernetes. So in every whatever the in Kubernetes, all things whatever the objects you are sending to Kubernetes fall in two syntax. Either it can be JSON format or either it can be YML, JSON or YML. So people follow the YML format and Kubernetes automatically converts that. So there is one command available, kubectl agent. Okay, that is a client available. So people interact with your Kubernetes cluster on the command line using the kubectl. So kubectl used to interact with the Kubernetes clusters. That is the client available in the market. Okay, because it's a REST API, so you can use the curl and other way as well. So, but from the command line, kubectl is a popular client available in the market. Okay, so you can see this deployment files, right? So I will explain you a little bit about that. What are there a lot of terms here like the API version, kind, metadata, right? So this is the Kubernetes API version on which this deployment support. Okay, and this is kind means what kind of object you are going to run. So I mentioned the object like the code, deployment, daemon set, stateful set. Okay, so there are other as a cron job and job are also available that I not cover. Okay, so those are also available. You can run those as well. So that's kind means which kind of project you are running. Then the metadata about that project, about that.
Pawan, can you increase the text size?
It's right.
If possible. Yeah.
Increase or not? Is it visible now? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we can able to visible.
I know.
Okay, now it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the deployment stack that we are going to run. So you can see metadata here. As I covered earlier, there is label, right? So those are the label I put here. App equal to that's key value. So this label has a key value pair. App is key and value is app. Then the name of this object. Then I told you there is namespace in Kubernetes, right? So it will run in K8s namespace. Okay. Then the spec, that is the definition of that object, like the replica. I want to run one replica, right? And you can mention 2, 3, 4. That depend on the workload. Then this I mentioned the selector, right? So this is the selector. It will match that label. then only it will run. Okay, so that is it should match that label, otherwise the workload will not run. So that is, I told you the rolling update. There is rollout and rollback functionality of the deployment that is controlled by this strategy, rolling update, how you want to roll out the new changes. Okay, then from here to till the last, right? From template, metadata, right? So this is a pod definition, pod spec. Whatever you are going to run, that is a pod definition. So this match label will match this label. Otherwise, your pod is not going to run. So that is to make sure that this match label, this selector should match this label. That is the label selector that I explained you earlier. So this is the practical demo of that. Then what will be the name of your pod? That is the pod name. Then your pod definition start here. The container. I told you can run one to many containers. Okay. So I'm running a Nginx container here. That is the Nginx image, Docker image, and the image tag there. Then image pull policy, like every time when you run the container, it always pull the image. If image is already there, then you can put another option if not present. So those are the options available. I will not go through that. Then the container name. Then you mention the port name, which port your application serve. So that's depend on like if you are running what kind of image you are running. That's entirely you can put there. So this is the workload I am going to run now. Okay. So this is kubectl. This is a client. Then apply means I am applying that workload. Okay. So that is the -f file, which file we are going to run. You see, it created that deployment. So there is few commands are there. Okay. So I will run those commands and explain about. There are a lot of commands are available. So just so there is a get is the one of the most popular command people use to get the information whatever you are running in Kubernetes. Kubectl get is there. Any object related information you can use the kubectl get. So I run the kubectl. I run the deployment. So now I want to see if the deployment is up and running. So kubectl get deployment. It will show me that this is the deployment. It is ready. Means it's up and running. Up to date is there. It's one available in 35 seconds. Okay. So there is -o void is also there. It will give few more information like the image name, container name. You see the selector, right? So void means few more information. So that's our deployment is up and running. And I told you, deployment run the replica set. Okay. So now we'll see the replica set. You see. Okay. So deployment, it run the replica set and replica set run the port. So I did only get deployment, get replica set, get port. So that is the old one I run earlier. Okay. So you see here web, that is the port name. You can see here, right? This port name, this is the replica set name, and then this deployment run, replica set run port. So this is the way how you run your workload. Now your workload is up and running. Okay. So I will do one thing. I will delete it. So I will show the Kubernetes behavior scaling and scale out will do later. So that is the self-healing component, right? I explained. So means if I delete that code, so what they do, Kubernetes replica set automatically create it again with different name. So just note down the name. Okay. So when you run deployment, every time the port name is changed. You see here, right? It's creating again with new name because it will make sure that one replica is always available. You see here running. Let me delete that. So you can understand, I delete it. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Again, client is there, kubectl, apply. If you want to any new changes, you just need to do the same thing. Apply, deploy. Just see the changes. Okay, so now what it will do? We'll do get deploy. The deployment short form is deploy. We can put the deployment or we can use the deploy. Both will do the same thing, right? You can see all three pods are up and running, and you can see RS. See port. You can see now three pods are up and running. So I can scale down as well. I can put 1. I can put 0 as well. It will scale down to 0. It will delete all those pods. So that is the scaling, scale up and scale down behavior Kubernetes. Okay, and this will cover the deployment, and then I will cover the rollout, the deployment. We discussed about the rollout.
Hey, Pawan, sorry, this is Chaitanya. I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
Hello. Okay, so now we have manually given the number of pods to be created. I mean, you have configured it in the YML file. So, is there a way we can auto scale it? Let's assume my number of user loads are increased. Okay, so it should automatically scale up. Let's assume three or four, like we used to do in AWS and all. I mean, it should be a horizontal scaling, right? So similarly, Kubernetes has similar functionality as well, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
can you please explain where you have to change that or where you have to configure that part?
So that some noises there. Can you please mute?
If I'm not talking, please mute.
Okay, so see, scaling like in AWS or any cloud, how you scale? You scale according to whatever the workload on your, right, the CPU memory, whatever the metrics available in your. Okay, so in Kubernetes, same way we can do that. Okay, that is called horizontal autoscaler there in Kubernetes that is available. So if you scale it, you can scale it using that. Okay, so I need to configure that file. Okay. I can see a lot of noise here. Please mute yourself. A lot of background noises. Yeah, that's fine. So, so there was auto scaling request, right? So let me, because I need to create the file for that auto scaling, and it all depend on your metrics, right? If there is any workload is there on your core, it will automatically scale it. So horizontal pod auto scale. It automatically scale. It will increase your pod, right? You have 1 pod are running, 2 are running, it will automatically scale. That is. So this should match your deployment. Whatever the deployment name is there, it should match there. So minimum replica is 1, maximum I can put 3. Okay. And you want that CPU utilization is 50% of all the 3 pods, then only it scale it. Okay. I need to put namespace as well. Okay. So horizontal port scalar version is not there. Auto scaling. 3 is there. Sorry. Unknown filter. I think I need to check API there.
One question. So that 50% that CPU utilization, whatever it is giving there, right? So that is something, you know, that I mean that specific pod utilization or it's a machine level. I think it is a pod utilization, right?
No. See, it is IUC resources, right? CPU
Correct.
utilization. So it is the average utilization of whatever the current code are running.
That's what I'm
Okay.
telling. So this is not the machine
Yeah.
CPU utilization, right?
No, not machine. It's a CPU.
Yeah.
It is a
Okay.
machine level auto scaling is different. Okay,
Correct.
like in AWS and all those, right? So
Uh-huh.
here it's your workload auto scaling. It means your code auto scale. Right.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
so there are different kind of scenario. You can use CPU, memory, and even though there are a lot of metrics are also available, okay, the custom metrics kind of scaling as well. So those are some advanced levels. I will not cover those, okay, because those are very like the monitoring part is there in Kubernetes. So
Yeah,
all
understood.
resource, yeah. So metrics should be available to scale. So there are these are the Kubernetes are already inbuilt. The metric server is there. You need to deploy that. It will fetch those metrics current CPU memory. So if you see here, these are there, right? Your 3 pod are running. So if in auto scaling, if you mention that 3 is the minimum and max is 10, so it will make sure and you put the 50% average CPU utilization. So if the average, whenever it reaches 50, exceed that, it scale that. And it scale based on those, it will make sure that it will not, whenever it again reach the 50, it scale up. And it also scale down as well. Okay, so there in Kubernetes, there is command called top. kubectl top port. Like in Unix, you have Linux based system, there is a top command to see the resource utilization. Similarly, kubectl top. So it will give you the CPU memory kind of thing. So what is the current utilization? Okay. So that is all about the deployment. Rollout thing was there. So I am going to roll out. Okay. So as of now, this version is running, right? Now I want to change your application version. So there are scenario in Kubernetes, right? That you want to roll out your Kubernetes. Okay, so here I want to change the image name, right? New image version, new application I want to deploy. Okay, so there I change the image only, rest of the things are remain same. Again, I will run, apply those changes, kubectl deploy. If you see kubectl get code, you will see here, it will automatically create, it deletes the one, right? Earlier it was 3 running, right? Now it is creating 2 new. So that is taken care by Kubernetes. So you see, it is terminating, creating, right? So that is how Kubernetes take care of those. So you see A's, so all 3 are deleted, new one is there. So if you see deploy, it is there. And then the replica set. You see here, old one. So every time, whenever you update anything in Kubernetes deployment, it will create a new replica set. Okay, so whatever the, like we change the image. So what happens? It creates the new replica set and it binds that replica set to that deploy. So that is how the rollout functionality work in Kubernetes. Okay, so we saw the replica set deployment. Okay, the next is daemon set. Okay, so let me delete the workload first. So similarly, there is apply, there is delete as well. Okay, so before that, let me cover the service part. Right, this is the service file. Right, I told you to how to access that Kubernetes services. Right. So this is the services thing where you can use the service to access the Kubernetes. Okay. So you see service kind is service, the name, namespace, those are just label value. Which port it will expose? It will expose port 80. and there is two port and target port. So target port is a port that is your container port where your workload is listening, right? So Nginx is listening on port 80, so it should match that. Otherwise, it will not map those, because if your application has different port, whatever the port of your application, you need to mention. Then this is the important component, selector. So whatever the port labels are there, it should match that. Okay. And then the service type. I told you there are 4 types of services. This is the one type of default services. So it will match that selector. So if you see in deployment, I'm opening again. So you will see this is a port. This is the port selector. It will match that, and I will show you now. Let's create the services. And one more thing I forgot to tell you about one thing. Pod -o wide. Pod has a IP address, right? You see here. So now let's.
Pawan, can you explain me once about a target port?
Yeah. So I will explain about this service, then you will understand better. Okay. So I will apply the service.
Yeah.
So similarly, get pod, there is get service as well. Okay. I saw the service. It's a service. Similarly, -o wide is also there. So o wide is available almost all the get command. It will show which selector it is using, right? Cluster IP, I told you there are two kind of IP in Kubernetes. One is the pod range and another is the service IP. So that IP is reachable within the Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So this is the service. I run that, and now how it maps to this port, that is the next thing. Okay, that you asked that question, how that target port works. Okay, so what happens? It will select those selector, whatever the selector is there, it will match those ports and bind to your services. Sorry. In SVC file, you see here target port. Target port means the port that you put in your port definition. So whatever the port, the application you are listening, like we know that we are using Nginx image and we know it listen on port 80. Okay, so that is the target port. So where your application is going to send the request, that is the target port. And where it is going to listen, that is the port 80. So now I created that services, get SVC. Now if I do curl here, so for do the curl, I need to run one port. Okay. Because these are available within the Kubernetes cluster, so I cannot, because I am on another instance, so cannot run from here. So I'm running a simple image in Kubernetes, that is the BGBox image. Curl command is there. So I do wget. Okay. So now I put the service name here, right? You see, it's reachable. It serves the index.html. I'm opening another terminal. Oh, sorry. So here I will show you. I told you the service is a virtual load balancer, right? So you can see I hit only one time, right? Wget index.html, right? So request will go to only one port. Okay. So in Kubernetes there is command kubectl logs. See the logs of your port. You see here we got that request. You see here. If we saw another log, because Nginx access log is there, you see nothing is there, right? So it's round robin. Send the request to another port. That is how services work. So let me remove this index.html. I run it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So let's see what happens. You see here we got one request here, then another port, we got 2 requests here, then is our first one port, we got the 3 requests. So you see the traffic is sent to all the backend nodes, all the backend ports, sorry. So whatever the ports are available in the backend in the services, it is sending to those. So that is the service, how that service works. Okay. This is your services, this is your port, it is bind according to that selector. So in any port, if that selector is met, it will send the request to that port. So we have only one endpoint, and that endpoint is sending request to many backends. So that is the what's virtual load balancer. That is functionality available within the Kubernetes.
Pawan, can we use the custom ports? Like that in a target port, can we mention a custom port like 310 like that?
No, target port should match your service. Sorry, your application port. This is your service port that you can change. Target port always match. If you put another port and Linux is listening on port 80, so it will not send the request to 80, no? Not send
Right.
request to that port, right? So it will should match that. So this is the service port, right? For example, I put 90, and you see here port 80 is there, right?
Yeah.
I apply now. Now it will listen on 90. You see here 90. So now I already run that. I will show you. Right? wget command. I am saying wget http. It's not reachable, right? Because it is serving on port 90.
90.
Okay. Okay. That is how it works.
So you mean to say that the port should match? Or like,
target port should match. Target
target.
port. I'm talking about the
Okay,
target.
target. Okay.
Right. So you think about how service send the request to backend. So it should be there must be some match, right? So
Yes,
target
ma'am.
port.
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
So I'm deleting that deployment. I am creating whatever I created services as well. Okay. So next I told you the daemon set, right? So that's a simple. What it do? It's just a name. Earlier it was deployment. Now is a daemon set. Rest of the things are same. You see the match label or image and everything. So it's a rolling update. That is the main update strategy. So what it will do? It will run that code on all the nodes. So I told you in Kubernetes there is node. So there is command called kubectl get node. So as of now, I have only two nodes. Okay. So how many port it will run? So it will run two port in daemon set. Okay. So get daemon set, right? You see two. You see port, right? So this is how daemon set. It will schedule your workload on. It will run your code on each and every node, right? So that is just a simple. I'm deleting it. Then stateful set. Yeah. Let me put one thing. Because so in stateful set, stateful set, I put the replica, right? I can control how many replica will run of that container, that port, right? So it has two replica. It need a service as well. So let me. Okay. So now I will run the STC. So earlier you saw the port name, right? It change every time when you delete it, right? So as I told you, that's a stateful set workload. So whatever the port name is, stateful set. Not fine. Why? So there is syntax error. Okay. So now it says same get stateful set. You can see two are running because I put the replica two. Now you see the port. You see one number port, two number port, right? So it will, the port name, port host name is fixed. So when, if you delete it, like I delete 0, right? So it again create with the same name. Okay, so that is how the stateful set. The name and so name will remain the same. And order of the start you can control, like you want to run first 0, then 1 and 2, right? So you can control those behavior as well in stateful set. So now if you see get port, you see 12 seconds, it's again that run. That is a stateful set. Okay. So I covered all these, the workload, right? Deployment, daemon set, stateful set is there, and replica set is there, and explain the services as well. Okay. So now next go to our, there are few still things are running. I'm covering those. So storage, right? So so how you store your data in Kubernetes, right? For example, you are running a application and you want your log should be there, right? Or you're running a MySQL application. So because in Kubernetes, if you delete the port, entire thing will delete. Okay, it's not persist. So there is a concept of storage. So it will make there are few term in that like the volume, percent volume claim, and storage class. Okay, so with the combine of all these functionalities, Kubernetes serve the purpose of storing your data so that when the port start or when you delete the port, the data remain there. Okay, so that is how handled by Kubernetes. So there is the first is the volume. So that volume is tied to your port. Okay. So it can be one or more volume in Kubernetes. You can attach the volume according to your requirement in your port. Okay. And that volume is used by container because what is our workload? The smallest unit, that is a container. So containers use those volume to store its data. Okay. So it will data will remain the same. Data will always there. Okay, volume will always there. If you delete the port or if you delete your deployments or anything, so data will remain the same. That is the how functionality of the volume. And there are volume types. You see AWS, Azure, you see GCP, percentage, Flocker. So it supported lot of volume types. Okay, you see NFS, percent volume claim, host path. So all those are there, And if you are running on cloud, you should use AWS. If you are using on AWS, you should AWS EBS. If you are running on GCP, you can use GCP %. Okay, so those are the volume types. Then % volume. So that's a kind of a storage resources. Okay, so those are created when you want to attach some volume to your pod. You should create % volume first. Okay, so that's a kind of another resources available in the Kubernetes. Okay, it cannot attach to pod. Okay, so only volume you can attach to pod. There is a volume % volume claim template is also there. That is also you can attach to volume. % volume cannot attach to pod. Okay, those are not related to pod. Okay, if you delete the pod or anything, it's nothing related to with % volume. Then the % volume claim. So % volume claim is it gets the data from % volume, right? So it's a kind of like, for example, you created a % volume of 100 GB. So now you can create a small different claim from that, right? 10 GB or 20 GB. So those are % volume claim. So it gets the resources from the % volume. Like in pod, like you create a pod, so it gets the CPU memory from underlying node, right? So similarly, this % volume claim, the PVC is a short name. So PVC gets its resources like the disk from where PV % volume. That is the % volume claim. The storage class. So that is the how you run your how you create your % volume. So that's all depend on the storage class on your Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So there are different kind of storage class available in the Kubernetes. Like there is volume type is there, right? AWS % block storage or GCP there, NFS there. So similarly, storage class also available in the Kubernetes. You just need to enable that and then use those. So by default, when you run Kubernetes on your cloud, so there are default storage class are available. Okay, so there is no need to create. Okay, so for example, you are running a NFS and you want to use as a storage class, like you want to serve the data from NFS. So you need to create a storage class from that. And then after that, when you create a storage class, you need to create PV and then PVC. So first storage class, then PV, then PVC, and then you have a volume. So this is the how it works. We'll see in demo, and there are two concepts are remaining only. Then I will show you all these things in demo, the PVC and PV, all those concepts. So the last two topics are config map and secret. Okay, so the use case of these two is to like to serve the Kubernetes environment variables as a volume. Okay, so you want to inject some configuration inside your application or inside the container, right? During the runtime. So these are the two ways using the config map or secret. You can inject some configuration inside the pod. So apart from the environment variables, you can put your configuration files inside your pod. Like we run the Nginx, right, in deployment. Now, for example, that image is there, but you want to modify the Nginx configuration. So how you will modify? Either you will create an image again and then run it. So another way is just override that nginx.on file using config map. So that is how you can inject your configuration, put your configuration into your container using the config map or secret. Okay, so difference between these two serve the same purpose. The only difference is config map is plain text. It stores the data in Kubernetes in plain text. Secret is base 64 decode. We'll cover more in example. Okay, so it can be access to environment variable, or inject as a file, as I told you, right? So those are the only two way how you can use the config map, using as an environment variable or using as a file. You can create it from manifest like a file, or from directly literal or directories. Similarly, secret only difference is it's encoded with base64. Okay, so use the secret when you want to keep like your database related username, password, or anything that you want to store as encrypted. So use the secret for those all kinds of purposes. Okay, it is same created from manifest, literal, directory, but it's only base64 encoded and use variable or as a file as well. Okay, environment variable and a file as well. So difference between config map secret is base64. Injecting as environment variable, injecting as a volume, injecting as a command. So command means you want to use environment variable in command. So basically that is the config map and secret. Now I will show you the demo. Then we'll so let's see the volume demo. Okay. So I told you there is storage class. kubectl storage storage class. You see here standard. So that is the by default available in Kubernetes. If you run on cloud, it is available. So like this cluster I created on GCP, it's a GK, Google Kubernetes engine. So by default, it creates a storage class which name is standard. Okay. Now there is PVC, persistent volume claim. So what happens if I run this? So this will create a persistent volume claim. Read write one. This is the storage size. Okay. In cloud, it will automatically create all these things. So I will put the short term PVC. See here, it's created. It also creates the volume as well. kubectl get PV. You see here, this is the persistent volume. It has this capacity, read, write, access. There is policy, right? So that is you can attach the policy like reclaim policy means when you delete the code. So what happened when you delete the PVC? What happened? PV also deleted or not? That is the policy. Then bound to whom it bound? It bound to here. You can see in PVC as well the reference as well. Okay, that is the claim name, right? And now we see in deployment, I'm using that. You see here volume, right? In Kubernetes, volume here. That is the volume. Name I put the data. Which name? It I told you. Code use the volume and PVC. And what is the name of that? That name. You see mount data. So I will mount that volume here. Okay. So that is what it do. So that is the only two things are new. Rest of the you see you saw earlier as well, this pack container, everything. So I'm storing this data. So whatever the data present here, so when you restart the pod or delete the pod, so data will be persistent. Because we created this external, right, PVC. So that's why data will not know. So now if I run it,
So you mean the data will be backup in that persistent volume, right? If
yeah,
the pod get deleted.
yeah. So
Oh,
that is the main functionality of volume, right? Like
yes,
you, for example, if you know
yes,
any database kind of application, so
yes, ma'am.
I told you pod deleted, everything deleted, right?
Oh,
So you want to store after you want to save some data, right? Some critical data, like you're running a MongoDB. So what happened?
mm-hmm.
You pod deleted, data was deleted. So that's a not a every time you need to populate the data, right?
Yes, yes.
So that is the way how you store your data. So pod deleted, but data will remain on that volume. and you can access it again or running it again.
Okay.
So now if I get port, so now if I go inside here, I'm just going inside that. Let's see what. You see here, I run the df-h command as a Unix command to see the mount point. You see here, it is mounted.
Yeah, yes, Pawan.
So as of now, it's nothing there. I create an index.html file, right? Sorry, that's index.html. So there are two files, right? Right. So now if I delete the port, right? So I deploy. Port deleted, terminating. Right. Now I will run this again. So those two files will be. So what happens? Oh. Container creating. So it's up and running. Say dff-h. You see, right? So those are files are available. That is the functionality of volume storage in Kubernetes. Now I'm deleting deployment. I'm cleaning up. Okay. I will delete the PVC as well. Now if you see get PVC, so nothing there. PV is there. So I need to manually delete that. So that is the volume. So I store data in some volume and then attach to pod. Right, I delete the pod and show you the data is still there. That is how you can use. Now the last practical is your config map and secret. Okay, so I told you can use in both are same purpose, environment variable and file, right? So let's see a simple config map. You can see it is the this is the text of specification of the config map. You see kind is config map, API version is there, its name is there, and what you want in that this first name, last name, name. So I want to expose the purpose of this config map. I want to expose these three environment variables, right? I want to inject these three environment variable inside my pod. So here I run a pod. You see pod, kind is pod, name is test. I'm running this image. I will run the env command. So when the pod starts, what do you do? It runs this command. So here you can see this is how we get the data from config map. So this is the env from, okay, then config map reference, the config map. So env from where from we are getting the env. So this is the config map from where we are getting them. Okay, and then name. What is the name of config map? It should match the same name what we put here. Okay. So now if I create config map, it's created. Similarly, get CM is a short name, config map. See, right? Now apply port. So get port. You see it's completed because we run the command env. So I will show you in logs what it do. So what I did, I expose all the three as an environment variable. I use config map as an environment variable. So in env, you will see here. Sorry. You see here, this is the environment variable. This is environment variables. These are environment variables. So all you see in port.yml, you see in bash. I run the env command, so it will print all the environment variables. Okay. So this is the use of using config map as a environment variable. So like for example, you have a around 10 to 11 environment variable and you want to use that. So you cannot put all those in port.yml at all. So it's better to manage using config map. I will clean up. Now I will show you the secret. So there is secret.yml. I created a secret. As I told you, it's a base 64 encoded. So I will decode that. Right? I will show you how I encoded that. Echo command is there. Base 64 -d. D means decode. You see my app. Okay. So this is how it's stored here in that. Is base 64 decoded. So these are the two values I want to access it using as a environment variable. Same way I did config map. env from here in config map is the config map reference. Here is secret reference and your name of the secret. Okay. Now if I were run here, get first see the if secret is created or not. So always when you do apply, always make sure that always run the get and make sure that the secret is created or not. Okay. Now get the port. Crash out that. The problem. You can see username. You can see password. Okay. You can see both the secrets are available as environment. So that is the example of that. Now the last example is using as a volume. So what I did, I created same config map and same data. In data, you can see spatial level and spatial type. So that's just an example, right? So what I want to use, I want to use these two keys as a file. Okay. Instead of environment variable, I want to use as a file inside the code. So I will create it. And then there is a port definition, right? We discussed already this volume, right? So volume, where it is coming from, config map, right? Here, where it is mounting, this is inside the container at that location, right? So whatever the files are available here, the keys, each key will be created as a file. So this is how config map do. Here at this location, I am running again the basic box. You see ls, it will give the output of that inside the etc config. So in etc config, it will show two files. Substitute log command, remember, you see, right? So those it print two files are there. So now what it did, it created two files. So we use because we use volume. So it works like a mounting a file inside your container. Right? So that is the use case of secret and volume. Okay. So apart from the secret, the environment variable, you can use it to store your certificate as well, TLS. So that is another use case of secret. So let's clean up things. So that is the practical what we cover. So here from you, if you want to learn more, so since I did not cover much because we don't have much time, even though still that 1 hour session is around 1.5 hours there. So the best site is Kubernetes.io for documentation examples. That's very good, and they maintain it. You can go through this site and follow that. Okay, for installation, setup, and each and everything. Okay. And do you guys have any questions regarding to that session? Right. So you can ask now anything about those. If you have any doubt or what we did here.
Pawan, can you give me a summary of that config map and secret, like, just a summary, like, the main points that we will be doing the use cases with that. So,
Yeah. So config map is use case is as I explained you earlier. You can use it to mount any configuration file right inside your container. Right, as we gave the example of Nginx. So you want to change some file during the runtime. You want to use new file instead of whatever the image available inside the base image. So you can use the config map to mount those files. There's another use case is environment variable. So you can use config map as environment variable. So similarly, secret both are the same purpose. Secret do some do other things as well. As I told you, TLS it's also used to store the TLS as well. Means certificate.
yes, sir.
Config map is only the plain text. It's your data or files, environment variables and files. It's like you are running Nginx and you want to change the Nginx configurations, then you can use the config map. Just mount it as a volume and use that.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Pawan.
So anyone, any other have any question or doubt, anything?
Doubt. Can you retake the session?
Sorry? Can you repeat? Hello. So this is a 2-day session feedback. We provide the feedback. Okay. So those are the link available. You can note down. Those are links. Right. So you can note down the link. GitHub group, LinkedIn. So that's a Micronet KT expert. Okay. So you can reach out even though we Ramesh being in the chat as well.
Pawan, share those links in the GoToMeeting chat.
Yeah. All
Guys,
these
please
links are available.
feedback. Yeah, that's helpful to conduct more sessions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thanks for connecting.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thanks.
Pawan.
Bye.
Have a great session.
Yeah, thanks, Pawan.
Thank you, Pawan.
Yeah, it was a good session.